I guess to get started, how'd you find yourself going to the Naval Academy?
Yeah, great question. So played football in high school,
Hmm.
and one of my friends was really interested in the service academies. He the service academy, Naval Academy had a football camp, and he's like, "Hey, do you wanna come down with me?" Went there, and it was beautiful. Had a great time. It's beautiful campus right on the Severn River, and what's not to like. Um, and that football camp kind of started the recruiting process for football. Ended up getting recruited, and you know also along the way, my aunt gave me a book called uh, Civil War, about the Army Navy football rivalry.
Oh, cool.
Read that, and it just sounded like a great place. One, values based. Two, kind of doing something that was a little harder than your average, college experience really appealed to me. And three, so kind of way back when I was in the sixth grade,
Hmm.
we had a reconnaissance Marine come in and talk to our sixth grade class. Showed this video about, hey, here's what being a recon Marine is, and it's guys jumping out of planes, guys, scuba diving, shooting guns, sneaking through the
Yes.
woods. I'm like, man, that is awesome. And in the book they talked about, you can go become a Marine after, a couple of them were becoming Marines after graduation.
Hmm.
I was like, oh, this is perfect. So I get to play football, and I get to go into the Marine Corps. Hopefully, be a reconnaissance Marine.
Hmm.
Um, awesome. So that's kind of how I got there. And it wasn't a complete straight path. So what they do at the Naval Academy for most athletes is they send them to prep school up in Newport, Rhode Island,
Okay.
because that Naval Academy is a 4-year institution, and so if they're going to redshirt a kid, they can't keep them there for a fifth year. So the
Right.
majority of their athletes, not just football, all sports, go up to the prep school, where the prep school is composed of athletes and then prior enlisted guys.
Hmm.
And real funny story, you get there, check in a little bit early. They give you a schedule, and everybody's kind of normal when they're checking you in,
Yeah.
and it go up to the second floor of the building where all the barracks are.
Yeah.
And as we start climbing the stairs, the guy that's walking me up there, he starts kind of becoming a jerk. And I'm like, what's going on here? Because the coach that was recruiting me, he's like, hey, look, we're gonna send you to the prep school,
Yep.
which is like another year, a little bit harder than high school. I'm like, okay, high school is pretty easy. Like, we can that'll be fine. You'll play football, and we're gonna pay you $500 a month, because you have to enlist in the Navy in order to go
Yeah.
to prep school. Which,
Yeah.
coming out of high school, that's a fortune. You're like,
Yeah.
heck yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, but what he failed to tell me is that there's a 3-week indoctrination period, where they yell at you, and make you do a bunch of calisthenics and run you
And is
all over
that
the
to try to
base.
like weed people out, or is that just hazing and just like a rite of passage?
I think it's more to kind of just like the term implies, right? Indoctrinate you into the culture, right? Give you an understanding of service, and hey, here's what it means, to be in the naval forces.
Right.
Um, and also to kind of break you down a little bit, so they can build you up the right way.
Right.
But it was kind of like a scene from Shawshank Redemption, because all the prior enlisted guys, like, this is nothing. This is a walk in the park. They've
Right.
all been through boot camp, but then you have all the athletes, and they're all like, "What's going on here? Like, why are they yelling at
Yeah.
us?" But yeah, so you went to the prep school for a year,
Hmm.
and then graduated from that, and then moved on to the Naval Academy, which for anybody that's interested in going to the Service Academy and they have the opportunity to go to prep school, highly recommend it,
Hmm.
because you're starting out with 200 of your closest friends,
Yeah.
as you go in there.
So was anybody else in your family in the armed forces, or was it really just that moment in sixth grade when someone came in and talked to you that like really got you thinking that way?
So both my grandparents, grandfathers were in fought in World War II.
Okay.
One grandfather was in the Navy, and the other grandfather was in the Army. Uh, both, both kind of on the aviation side. They weren't pilots, but they worked on, my grandfather on my father's side, he was a rescue swimmer in the Navy.
Hmm.
And then my grandfather on my mother's side worked on the B-52 bombers.
Wow.
And so, but that wasn't really a big part. I think it was a combination of that Marine coming to talk to us in sixth grade,
Hmm.
and then the opportunity that kind of showed itself through football to get there. And then probably like the last thing. So after that, maybe in sixth grade, my mom said there was two things that she would never let me do.
Hmm.
One was join the military, and two was play football. And like some kids do drugs, some kids rebel. Like that was my way of rebelling.
Yeah.
I played football in the Naval Academy.
That's awesome. Yeah, in in retrospect, that's probably the best form of rebellion. That's amazing. So did you play all 4 years
I,
at Naval Academy,
I,
or?
I did not. I played for 2 years,
Hmm.
and didn't end up working out. We got a new defensive coordinator, and he had a different idea of kind of who should be playing. Believe it or not, I was a nose guard, so used to be a much larger human being, more so wide.
Yeah.
Height kind of stayed the same.
Yeah.
But yeah, he had a different idea, and just didn't work out, which at the time was probably the worst things that ever happened to me. But looking back, probably the best, because during that period, got introduced to rugby,
Hmm.
and one of our rugby coaches was he was a recon Marine, Major Kevin Shea, and really got to know a lot of very phenomenal Marines. So there's Kevin Shea, Major General Sparky Renforth. He was a major then, retired as a Major General, and Jeff Nagel, and they all kind of, I would say pre-rugby, I wanted nothing to do with the Marine Corps, just based off of the Marines that I kind of interacted with.
Yep.
At the Naval Academy, and then meeting those guys, like, man, this is who I want to be when I grow up. These are the kind of leaders I want to be. So rugby gave me that opportunity. Also, kind of through rugby, had the opportunity to represent America with the All-American collegiate team in New Zealand.
Oh, cool.
Was really cool.
They take their rugby serious.
They do.
And they call it footy or football, or do they?
No,
call
it's
it
still rugby.
It's still rugby?
It's still rugby. Yeah, I would say, we were bigger, faster, stronger than anybody we played against.
Yeah.
They were just way more technically sound.
Yeah.
And but that was an amazing opportunity. And then also, so at the Naval Academy at the time, they only allow 16.7% of the graduating class to become Marines, right? So class of 1,000, right? Only 167 kids can go Marines.
Wow.
So I graduated in 2003. So what happened, right? 9/11, right on the heels of 9/11.
Yep.
We just invaded Iraq, and so a lot of folks want to be Marines. And academically, I wasn't super strong at the Naval Academy, and thanks to rugby, so those three guys, Kevin Shea, Sparky Renforth, Jeff Nagel, all fired their silver bullet to help me become a Marine.
Wow.
And so, yeah, super grateful that football to rugby transition, kind of happened. And super grateful for those guys, because, they never did I imagine, day one, I was going to spend over 20 years as a Marine, but had that not happened, who knows where I would have been.
Yeah. It's interesting to look back on things like that, where at the time something happens, like you're like, man, this is the worst thing ever. And then, down the road, you're like, wow, that was like a pivotal point in my life that challenged me. It was an obstacle that I had to overcome and made me a better better human or
Yeah,
something.
absolutely. And, I'm sure we'll kind of get to the transition point, but as it's moments like that where you look back on, and when you're facing challenges kind of in your current day, you can kind of look back and be like, oh, well, this happened, and that was really hard, but I was able to get through it, and everything, everything that brought me to where I am now, it'll happen again,
Yeah.
right?
So so from the Naval Academy to then going into the Marines, what is that transition like? What's the time period? What do you have to go through?
Sure.
Yeah.
So my time period was a little extended because of the All American team.
Okay.
So you graduate in May. Most of the time you'll pick up so all Marine officers start out, they go to the basic school.
Okay.
Because in the Marine Corps, every Marine's an infantryman. So every Marine officer is a rifle platoon commander in theory.
Okay.
So you go to the basic school where you learn the basics of.
Where is that?
It's in Quantico, Virginia.
Okay. And is it everyone around the country that is going to become a Marine goes to Quantico?
Correct. Yeah.
Wow.
A couple different ways you can get there. So say you're coming from regular college, you'll go through officer candidate school, also in Quantico, Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
Once you pass officer candidate school and you're commissioned, then you go to the basic school.
Yep.
At the Naval Academy, you go right to the basic school. So it's about 6 months.
Okay.
And then while you're there, you basically write the different jobs that you would want, rank them 1 through 33. And they do what's called a quality spread, to where, they'll take, say there's 10 infantry or 30 infantry slots. They'll take 10 from the top third, 10 from the middle third, 10 from the bottom third. My top choice was infantry. I was fortunate enough to get it. So graduated from the basic school, and then you go through infantry officers course for another 3 to 4 months. Once that's complete, while you're there, they decide kind of where you're going to go. Again, you can write down what you want to do. The Marine Corps is going to tell you where to go.
Yeah.
And so, for me, first choice at the time was Camp Lejeune, and there was another guy that wanted Hawaii. Actually, I take that back. I just got selected. They told me I was going to Lejeune.
Yeah.
Another guy got Hawaii, and the battalion that I was going to was going to deploy to Iraq within probably a month of getting there.
Holy smokes.
And the other guy wanted to go to Iraq. I was like, man, Hawaii sounds a lot cooler than Camp Lejeune. And so we switched, went to 3rd Battalion, 3rd Marines in Hawaii. What was going to be an Okinawa deployment got shifted. An Okinawa deployment in January got shifted to an Afghanistan deployment in November.
Moved up.
Well, just the Marine Corps said, "Hey, third Marines,
Yeah, you guys are going to Afghanistan.
You guys are going to Afghanistan."
Oh, wow.
So we went to Afghanistan instead.
And that was what, 2003?
It was 2004.
2004?
Yep.
Yeah, so there was some stuff going on.
Yeah, it was sporty. It was definitely sporty.
Oh my God.
So that that's kind of the timeline, and yeah, so start out as an infantry officer with 3rd Battalion, 3rd Marines. Went to Afghanistan right away, and then came back from that, went to Iraq, and then from there, had an opportunity to try out for Marine Reconnaissance, which got selected, passed the screener, and then 2 choices, either Okinawa or here. It's like, well, I've been living on an island for the last 3 years. Like, it'd be cool to get back to the mainland.
Yeah.
Which is what brought me to Camp Lejeune in Eastern North Carolina, and never left.
Got it. Yeah, so that's how you got back to North Carolina.
Yep.
So tell me a little bit, like, what is the difference between an infantry and a Marine Raider, and then tell us about MARSOC as well. Understand all these different
So
levels.
the infantry is the backbone of the Marine Corps. it is, they locate, close with, destroy the enemy through fire, and maneuver. Think, something needs to be broken,
Mm-hmm.
send in the Marines.
Yeah.
They are, it's a bulldozer,
Yeah.
right? If something needs a little bit more of a surgical touch, that's where the Marine Special Operations Command would kind of come into play.
Which is MARSOC.
Correct,
Yeah.
MARSOC. Yep.
Okay.
And the Marine Corps, you have the whole Marine Corps, right? And they fall underneath the Department of the Navy. MARSOC, administratively, we fall underneath the Marine Corps and the Department of the Navy.
Yep.
However, operationally, we're tasked by the United States Special Operations Command. So
Okay.
in 2006, Donald Rumsfeld decided that the Marine Corps was going to provide forces to USSOCOM, and that's kind of how the Marine Special Operations Command was built.
Got
I
it.
like to tell people, hey, Rumsfeld, he realized that SEALs and Green Berets needed heroes too, and so that's why we have MARSOC.
That's awesome. That's too funny. So, I mean, the idea of going through like a military track, I mean, the lessons and the skills that you learn about leadership, just determination, like grit, like overcoming challenges. I mean, tell us a little bit what it's like, just going from playing football in college, yes, it's in the Naval Academy, but then next thing you know, you're training to get deployed and go to war. I mean, what's that like? It's
Yeah.
crazy.
So the Naval Academy does a great job of preparing junior officers to kind of fill those roles, right? So you're surrounded by it every single day. You realize that we talked about kind of NDOC, and then at the prep school, and then
Yep.
at the Naval Academy they have plebe summer, and that really that teaches you this is what it's about, right? This is why you're here. This is what it means to serve in our nation's armed forces. The Department of War is in the name, right? It's a war fighting organization.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a surprise, right? It is very much in the title, in the job description.
Mm-hmm.
Also, like, hey, to become a Marine, you have a very clear understanding of why what you're about to do and kind of why you're going to do it, right? So there's a level of excitement.
Yep.
And then also, as you go through the basic school and infantry officers course, it teaches you, one, how to be a Marine officer, two, once you get to infantry officers course, how to be an infantry officer,
Mm-hmm.
how to lead a platoon. So you show up, with a understanding of like, all right, here's what we're gonna do, and then like going, kind of right into combat. I kind of look at it as like when you're training, it's like going to practice.
Yep.
Right? You're putting the uniform on, you're playing against, your buddies, but the whole reason that you're practicing is because you want to play in the game. And I'm not equating warfare to a game, but
Right.
just as an analogy, right? And so you again, you're kind of doing these things with with your kind of eyes open, and it's a lot of folks join the military to deploy, because, hey, this is what I want to do,
Mm-hmm.
and very fortunate to have been in during a time when we deployed a lot, and so got to it was incredible. Now there are some absolute challenges, some things that, like, you're not gonna be prepared for,
Mm-hmm.
but it's everything kind of leading up to that makes you kind of ready. Like case in point. So the first deployment, we're in a place called the Korengal Valley in northeastern Afghanistan.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty kinetic place, and it was we ended up we got it. It was day one of a 3-day kind of gunfight, and my platoon sergeant. So we're in this abandoned lumberyard,
Mm-hmm.
and my platoon sergeant goes into one of the rooms of the lumberyard, and he refuses to come out. So here we are, day one of a 3-day fight, and my platoon sergeant just basically quits.
What?
So yeah. So like, how do you deal with that, right? Like,
Yeah.
how do you, you know, that's something that you're not really, they don't cover specifically,
Yeah,
and so
exactly.
you kind of again fall back on what you built kind of up to that point, right?
Hmm.
Here at Capone Associates, like Chris, you built a phenomenal culture.
Well,
Got
thank
to
you.
spend some great time with a lot of your folks, and
Thanks.
I feel like everybody that I've interacted with, like they understand their job, they understand like what they're supposed to do, they understand what's important to you. Well, being a Marine officer is no different, right? Everybody needs to understand the role. Everybody needs to understand, hey, if something happens to me, like what are you going to do?
Yep.
Um, so that when those events do happen, you're able to kind of overcome them, right? So, he said, hey, I'm not coming out. We got the squad leaders together. So just for context, right, an infantry platoon, platoon commander, platoon sergeant, and then 3 rifle squads.
Hmm.
So got the squad leaders together and like, hey guys, look, here's what's going on, and we just kept moving. One, as under necessity, right? Like we can't stop, like we got to keep going.
Right.
Two, as the guys were prepared, they understood their jobs. We built a level of trust. Um, so I'm probably rambling a little bit, but
No,
I
this is
think that
really
kind of
interesting.
answer your question there.
Yeah.
It's again, it's kind of why you joined.
Hmm. So I get tell if you can, like, I'd love to hear a story of, I don't know, maybe one of the, you know, you use the term sporty and kinetic, but one of the like scarier, like real, like life death situations
Yeah.
that you were in. If you
So
could share a
so
story.
I'll tell you the scariest moment
Okay.
uh, ever while I was deployed.
Hmm.
So that same deployment. Um, so we took this camp over from a Army Special Forces team. Just a regular Marine Infantry unit platoon. Um, and we kind of took this thing over. We're at the kind of edge of the empire, um, and with it came the SF team. They had 4 pets. They had 2 dogs, Henry and Hamchuck, and they had 2 monkeys, Mr. and Mrs. Peepers. And Mr. Peepers, he was probably you you've seen the show Friends,
Yeah.
Mr. or Marcellus, right? Like
Yeah.
he was about that size, and Mrs. Peepers was a baby version of that.
Yeah.
So I'm in my company executive officer's room. He's it was my rifle platoon, and then he was kind of running the camp. Um, and I'm in his room, and the special forces guys, they just left a bunch of ammo and stuff all over the place. So I'm in his room, and in comes Mr. Peepers, and he takes a push pin, puts it in his mouth, and we're like, oh no, Peepers, like don't, you're gonna hurt yourself. So we're trying to get the push pin away from him, and he's having a great time. Keep the push pin away from the humans, and then he jumps on this ledge, and right next to him is a hand grenade, and he drops the push pin. He grabs the grenade by the pin. He jumps down, opens the door, and he starts running out. Now, like again, context, like the building that we're in, probably had about 40 Marines inside of it. And I see him, he's like got the grenade. He's like chink chink running through. Everybody get out, the monkey's got a grenade. I mean, Chris,
Holy
this
crap.
is how it ends.
Yeah.
And eventually, so we evacuated the building, and eventually, Mr. Peepers kind of lost interest, and we were fine. But that hands down was nothing prepares you for that,
Yeah.
right? Monkeys with grenades,
Monkeys with grenades.
terrifying. Um,
Oh my gosh,
but
man.
yeah, there's you during that period in Afghanistan, and then subsequent, so we did Afghanistan 04 to 05, Iraq in 2006, so also pretty sporty. Um, you mix it up. Um, that nothing that I would think would be kind of outside the ordinary. There's there's a lot of, believe it or not, there's a lot of comedy that goes into, some of those interactions.
Yeah.
But again, you're prepared, right? You go, you train hard, do a good solid mission analysis,
Hmm.
and the guys kind of know what to do when the time comes.
Absolutely. And I want to hear a little bit more about what you did in Lejeune, but on that point, and that's where I want to go. And as we like connect this to like business and
Sure.
leadership, is
Yeah.
like, I mean, everything you just mentioned about like coming up with a plan, executing, post-mortem, like working together as a team. I mean, you know, well, I guess, how do you use that in, in business and in leadership now?
Yeah. Same principles apply, right? Hey, what do we need to accomplish?
Hmm.
What is what is the intent of like why are we doing this, right?
Hmm. Yep.
And I'd say my current role, right, that's a big part is understanding like, hey, what do you want to get out of this? Whether you're a business owner, you're running a business, right? Like why?
Yep.
What do you want this business to ultimately do for you? Understand, what resources do we have available to us?
Yep.
Um, hey, whether that's, again, like kind of current life, right? You're talking dollars and cents, you're talking people, and I, in the previous life, right? We're talking beans, bullets, band-aids, we're talking, aircraft,
Hmm.
um, you kind of name it, right? And then, hey, what are the risks, right? Like what is going to kind of get in our way?
Hmm.
Um, and same thing with kind of current like current role, right? Like, hey, what's everything that's going to stop you from getting from point A to point B?
Yep.
And then you build contingencies around those events, right? Like, hey, if we're driving down the road and we're in downtown, you name it, in Iraq, and we hit an IED, an improvised explosive device, like what happens, right? Truck one, what are you doing? If it's truck one, like truck two, what are you doing?
Hmm.
Everybody, like we kind of talk through this, right? Hey, if we're doing a raid and we get a casualty here, how are we gonna
Yep.
medevac them, et cetera, right? So kind of taking those same principles and just
Yep.
fast forwarding them into real life. Um, that's kind of how we go about it.
Well, and I mean, when you're in like actual war and conflict, like you're planning because it's literally like life or death, right? Like you're going through this extensive planning because hey, like if we don't, like we could all die. Like and like bringing that perspective and in-depth analysis to like business. I mean, it's not life and death, but man, when it comes to planning and contingency and if this, then what, I mean, it just suits you, helps the business owner or helps the team or whatever be able to, navigate hurdles or change or all that stuff. I mean, it's like the best training, that you could have is, having to plan for life or death situations, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing that the kind of veteran community brings, right? Like
Yeah.
they have, they have that background, right? They have that kind of foundation to where when they step out of uniform, they're able to bring that to whatever organization,
Yeah.
either they're a part of or whatever organizations that they're working with.
How is your transition from, being in the being a Marine and and then stepping out into civilian life? I know it can't be easy.
Well, so it was actually surprising. I'm not saying surprisingly easy or surprisingly hard. I'll just say surprising,
Yeah.
right? I was fortunate that so the anybody that falls underneath the United States Special Operations Command, like they have access to an organization called the Honor Foundation,
Mhm.
which is a transition assistance program.
Okay.
And it's pretty extensive. It's several months long, and they kind of walk you through, hey, who are you, right? Like that's probably the hardest thing to figure out
Wow.
because when you take that for over 20 years, right? it's pretty clear. Like I was a Marine.
Yeah.
You
Like
know, like
that's my identity,
that,
right?
that's
Like,
what I am,
yeah.
right? This is the thing that I do, and so it's figuring that out. Like, who am I outside of the Marine Corps? What
Yeah.
makes Roy Bechtold tick? Um, and they kind of they won't get you a job, but they will help you figure out like, hey, what's the right fit?
Mhm.
There's a handful of factors that you kind of work through, right? And life's a series of trade-offs. But their thing is, hey, you can love what you do, you can love who you work with, you can make good money, you can live where you want. There's a fifth one, I forget, but
Mhm.
basically it's a number of things where you're like, all right, well, this is kind of what's important to me, right?
Mhm.
Um, I think transitions are different for everybody. One, you know, not everybody gets to leave the armed forces on their own terms, right?
Mhm.
It's an up or out organization. I was very fortunate to where I got to decide like, hey, enough's enough. And I did so after my son was born.
Mhm.
So my wife and I had a real tough time getting pregnant, and then
Mhm.
through the grace of God, we did in vitro, a bunch of miscarriages, and then through the grace of God, my son was conceived naturally.
Wow.
Actually, the night I got home from Somalia, and so when he was born, I was like, man, I'm gonna be the greatest father to you that possible.
So
And you know, family. We always wanted to have obviously a husband and wife, like that is a family, right? But then you
yeah.
throw kids into the mix, and it's now a bigger family, right? And you know, always wanted to be a provider and be the best husband and father that I possibly could be. So he was born in the summer of 19, winter of 20. Battalion commander comes into my office and he's like, "Hey, congratulations, you're going to Afghanistan." Um, and so that was February. Left in March, and great job. Worked for probably one of the best leaders ever had the opportunity to work with. But I'm watching my son's first birthday on my phone, and I'm like, man, what am I doing? I checked all the blocks. Did every kind of job that I wanted to
Mhm.
in the Marine Corps, and I think anything more would have just been sticking around for ego. Um, I was not in a position to be the best father that I could be.
Yep.
I was not in the position to be the best father or best husband that I needed to be, and so it's kind of all right. We're going to call it quits. Um, so that was good, and then also fortunate enough to kind of find Raymond James, um, in the place that we wanted to live. We love Wilmington.
Yep.
My wife went to UNCW and kind of never left. And so when it came time to retire, she's like, "Hey, look, I don't care what you do. We're not moving."
Yeah.
Uh, um, and so really really fortunate for that. But the tough thing was, it's not. A lot of people think transition is just about getting the job,
Right.
right? But it's everything else, right? Like the all the roles in the family kind of change. Um, hey, who's taking them to school? Who's picking them up? Who's doing X, Y, and Z, right? Like it's all different because it used to be just, hey, I'm going to work.
Mhm.
See ya, right?
Yeah.
Couldn't even bring my phone into my office. You work in a secure facility, so
Yep.
no phones. To where now, you're able to get your access accessible 24 hours a day.
Mhm.
Um, so I think the big thing is figuring out, hey, what's my new purpose, right? What's my new life's mission, and kind of you know, how how am I not going to forget who I was,
Yeah.
and still kind of succeed, kind of now, right?
So how that's a perfect like segue into the question that I wanted to ask is, how did you find yourself as a financial advisor at Raymond James? Like, tell us about how
Yeah.
why that was the fit for you.
Yeah, so kind of going through the honor foundation, um, you know, understanding who you are, understanding kind of what's important to you, and then also understanding, what you need to look for in the next career. And the military, it's a people business, right? And it's built on trust. Yes, everybody has to. There's a rank structure, right?
Mm-hmm.
And guys are gonna follow you just because they have to, right? But they're not robots, right?
Right.
They're people. They have families, they have needs, they have desires, right? And so, and you're going to ask them to do some very dangerous things. And so, there's a part of that is building trust. And what are they looking to you as a leader, right? Number one, they're looking to you as, hey, he's not going to get me into something that I can't get out of.
Right.
And then two, if something bad happens, like he is going to make sure that I am okay. Um, and so, as one looking for something that's kind of trust based. Nobody gets on that black helicopter with you in the middle of the night unless they trust you.
Mm-hmm.
Two, look, hey, when did I have the most fun, right? And that was when I had a very obscure mission set. I was kind of free to do what had to be done. Um, but at the same time, I had all the resources that I could possibly need. Kind of, I guess, maybe transitioning the career into the Marine Special Operations Command. So, first deploying with them as a Raider team commander. Afghanistan had shifted, from being very village focused to, now is, since 2013. So we started to draw down. It was like the first drawdown. So we started drawing down. And so that village focus turned into provincial focus.
Mm-hmm.
And so, our mission was provincial stability operations. And what that meant was, we're in a province, and how do we support the Afghan National Army? How do we build Afghan local police? And just kind of work with each one of those elements. Plus, we had a partner force to combat the Taliban, right? Hadn't really been done before. And hey, Roy, here's your special operations team. Go figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
And we were free to run an entire province and just figure out, hey, how are we going to take what was originally a methodology originally designed for a village and expand it over a province.
Mm-hmm.
There's no manual, right? It was just kind of figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
And so, looking for, get outside, looking around. Also, I should factor in the comment from my wife, like, hey, I don't care what we do, we're not moving.
Yeah.
So I started driving around Wilmington and like, oh, look, there's Wells Fargo, there's Merrill Lynch. Like, I know what those guys do.
Yeah.
Started leaning into looking into the kind of wealth management side of things. And it was a lot of the same, a lot of the same things that I focused on while I was in uniform. Just a direct transfer, right?
Mm-hmm.
When we talk about, hey, what is the mission, right?
Yep.
Specifically, working with business owners, hey, why are we running this business? Like, what do you want it to achieve for you? What resources do we have available to us? And what are the risks, right? Because it doesn't matter if you kill bin Laden, but you lose your entire platoon. What good is that mission, right? So you got to mitigate risk along the way. And then also bringing all of the organization to bear, in support of that, that business owner or client.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of why Raymond James, right? So I've done a lot of really dumb things to, earn some cool T-shirts. And every step, so going from, starting at the Naval Academy, right? Very drawn to the culture, the culture of, what the Naval Academy is all about, what it means to serve. And then, same thing with the Marine Corps, love the culture, wanted to work with Marines. And then, as you start going through, so, start out as an infantry officer, and hey, what's the next best culture that I could be a part of? What's the next best thing? Well, Marine reconnaissance. Kind of before MARSOC was a thing, right? And then you're at, Marine Recon. I'm at Second Reconnaissance Battalion. What's the next, kind of best culture to be a part of? Hey, the Marine Special Operations Command. Let's do that, right? And so, culture is a big part. And Raymond James is a value-based organization, right? So we put, the number one value is put the clients first. As a Marine officer, you everything you do, like you put the Marines, the mission of the Marines kind of before everything else. And so that matches, like, I understand that, right? Marine in the Marine Corps, officers eat last, right? So hey, we put clients first. Like, that's a direct correlation. We value independence, and again, like another parallel, the Marine Corps is not going to tell you kind of how to do anything, right? They will tell you, like, hey, look, here's some tools, here's some ways to do it, but ultimately it's on you to kind of figure it out, right? And we act with integrity. That's a direct correlation. And then lastly, we take the long-term approach. It's not, when you do an operation, when you do say a raid, right? It doesn't just start and stop with actions on the objective, right? You have to plan and everything that's going to get you from where you are to the objective. Obviously, what you do on the objective is very important, but then how are you going to use that to amplify how are you going to use the actions on objective to amplify the effects, to one, whether that means leading to the next mission, whether that means influencing a network that you want to influence. There's just so much more, right? So kind of that, again, another kind of very direct tie, and seeing all that, meeting the folks here in Wilmington's phenomenal office. It's like, man, this is it, right? Another correlation, right? The Marine Corps is built around the infantry. Raymond James is built around the clients and their advisors. So they will, whatever the client needs, back to the independence. There's no pressure for a single solution, right? It's again, kind of client based, and all that, just kind of, it just felt right. And I think that I'm extremely fortunate to have found the organization that I did.
That's awesome. What types of clients do you work with? Like, what's a typical profile or a couple types of profiles of folks you work with?
Yeah, sure. So mainly work with business owners that are, whether they're in growth, right? We help them out with growing their business, or they're preparing for an exit. And we talk about kind of correlations, right? It's all about, like, building the team around that business owner. Got and it. Making sure that each one of those team members are in alignment, right? There's a lot of professionals out there. What you don't want to have happen is your attorneys are moving in one way, your accountants are moving in another direction, and your wealth advisors are moving in a third. Right. So make sure that everybody's moving in lockstep. Kind of before coming to Raymond James, I spent some time at Live Oak Bank, where I am convinced I was the oldest intern that they've ever had.
Oh, that is hilarious. I'm just like picturing you like showing up like with like maybe like a lunchbox or something.
Oh, Chris.
Like,
so we check
a bunch
in.
Of like 22-year-old kids or something.
We're doing the onboarding, and there's this girl. She's probably like a rising junior at UNCW. I'm sitting next to her, and I'm like, hey, what are you doing here? She's like, oh, I'm an intern. I'm like, oh, get out. So am I. And the look on her face was priceless.
Oh my God.
But really got to understand, kind of the needs of business owners, right? And what I saw was, their kind of wealth is a system of systems, right? And so obviously you have the business, you have the personal side of things, right?
Yep.
And all that should be kind of moving in the same direction. And typically, most times you see it's not, um, but the personal side should support the business goals and vice versa. And so that's back to that alignment, right? Like that's kind of what we do is we layer both of those things on top of each other, and we make sure that hey, what's going on the personal side is going to reinforce your business goals, and vice versa.
Yep. That makes all the sense in the world. And then so you're advising clients, and then also I'm sure there's an aspect of like investment management and hey, you sold your business.
Right.
Now we've got this
Yeah.
this
So
treasure chest.
I would say, kind of goes back to, what we were talking about earlier, right? Like, when you deploy, you don't just like go into your locker, grab, 30 or 40 of your closest buddies, get your guns and, get on,
Yeah, and head out.
get on a plane, right? Like there's the lead up, right? Like,
Yep.
hey, goes back to understanding the why, understanding the mission,
Yep.
and then we prepare for it, right? So, you have, say, a business owner who's looking to sell, or is preparing for, hey, look, it's time to sell the business. Like, this has just happened. It could,
Yep.
but probably less than optimal results, right? So, you know, it's everything kind of leading up to that. Everything from kind of tax mitigation planning. There's the investment management, estate planning, bringing together that kind of team to surround that owner. Bringing in the investment banker, the tax advisor, the M&A attorney.
Mm-hmm.
Again, giving them the private wealth side is understanding, hey, what's your number, right? What do you have envisioned, post transaction? So what does this need to transact for?
Yep.
Giving that target to their the other professionals, making sure that they're moving in a direction that's going to achieve that vision, um, and kind of a transaction's a long process. Chris, I know you've seen a number of these, right? It
Yep.
doesn't just happen.
Yeah.
There's a lot of back and forth. Deal fatigue is a very real thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? So keeping mission oriented, keeping focused
Yeah.
on, hey, look, here's why we're doing this, right? And then this is what this is going to this event is going to achieve.
Yep.
And then lastly, our transaction happens, crack open the beers,
Yep.
have a good dinner.
Yep.
But then, how do we, structure that on the investment management side of things to achieve everything, that you wanted to achieve kind of post exit, right? And really, you it there can be a lot less risk. There can be a lot more certainty of the income that's going to come post exit than really that what you're getting from your business, right? Because your income is reliant on a single business, right? And now we transform that. It's a lot of business risk, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now we transition that into something that's more diversified, right? So, instead of just being concerned with a single business, right, the income is coming from a number of businesses. So, kind of spreading that risk out.
Absolutely. So when's the right time for someone to come and talk to a financial advisor or talk to you? Like, is it?
Yeah, I think wherever they're at, right? If they're you know interested in and we can kind of lead into veterans for as business owners, but you know if they're interested in acquiring a business, right? We can help, right? Always great to you know have a plan before you cross the line of departure.
Mm-hmm.
If they're in the growth phase, if they're looking for a growth partner, we can help there. Um, and then typically best sooner the better, right? The more lead time, the more prep time you have to align the business with your personal situation with the business.
Yep.
Kind of the better outcomes could be, right? But if we're going to pick a line in the sand, right, I would say at least 12 months out, from an exit
Mm-hmm.
is probably ideal.
Yep.
Um, you know, anything inside of it, can absolutely make it happen, right? I'm not afraid of running hard.
Yeah.
And that's just what what we would do.
Awesome. Well, man, I really appreciate your time, and I think just hearing the stories and the progression from being a Marine and into back into civilian and business life. Thank you so much for your service
Yeah,
and
Chris,
the sacrifices you've made.
I appreciate it, man. Long time listener, first time caller.
Yeah.
So really honored to be on your podcast and just honored to be part of I would say part of Component Associates, but
Yeah, man.
associated with Component Associates. You brought me in, you let me use your gym,
Yeah,
and
you,
that's been a ton of fun.
you're our fractional physical trainer or like a team trainer.
That's one of your employees. Like I ran into one of your girls out there. She's like, "Oh, you're the personal trainer." I'm like, "Nah,
No,
it's not what I
for
do."
the record, Roy comes in and puts us through some hardcore workouts on Friday mornings as a team. And you said something really cool that's resonated with me is like, I think it's like those that, maybe you'll have to say it, but those that suffer together, like work well together. There's something about suffering together creates like a really strong team.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely,
so
absolutely.
awesome, man. Well, thanks for everything and appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks, Chris.
Heck yeah.